Yes, please do. Please do.
When you want, whatever.
Now is the time.
Is the president
Right.
connected with us? His Excellency.
Yes, he is.
I'm with
He
you.
is.
Okay, Mr. President. Thank you so much for the honor. So, Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, members and friends of the Nizami Ganjabi International Center, the NGIC. This is a great day for the NGIC. We are privileged that His Excellency President Aliyev has agreed to join us for a dialogue on his visions and aspirations for Azerbaijan, the region, and the world. The President, 8 years ago, you sponsored the creation of an international center that would celebrate the great Azerbaijani poet Nizami Ganjabi. International by its membership and its leadership, with a board of trustees that would elect its own co-chair, design its own work program, and appoint its own Secretary General. You trusted us, Mr. President, and we hope that you have been satisfied that your trust is well placed. In the journey of these 8 years, we have had many activities that you invariably supported, and the international presence of the NGIC grew apace. The Global Baku Forum became the premier event regionally and gained the privileged position on the international calendar, with many of the most eminent people in the world keen to attend and participate. But beyond the forum, the NGIC held many other events addressing the Balkans and South Caucasus, as well as Europe. And then NGIC expanded its international outreach by adopting a strategy to build bridges to the US and the UN, with a special attention to our links to a rising China. Mr. President, in all we did, we were advancing the legacy of Islami and the vision of Azerbaijan as a cultural link between East and West, a platform for reflecting on the challenges facing humanity. The NGIC gained a position of prominence as a center for learning, tolerance, dialogue, and understanding. And then came the pandemic, and we were obliged to cancel the Global Baku Forum of 2020. However, you will be pleased to know that we are committed to have a very successful Global Baku Forum 2021 later this year. Under the guidance of the Board of Trustees, our staff, headed by our Secretary General, Mr. Muradov, is working closely with Mr. Hikmat Hajiev and your protocol office on the design and implementation of the Global Baku Forum 2021 in order to ensure that it fits the calendar and rises to expectations. But despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the NGIC remained very active despite the lockdowns and the travel restrictions. We made full use of the new technologies and redoubled our efforts. We hosted 28 conferences with 90 sessions with 370 speakers, speaking roles with 250 speakers from 60 countries. We covered everything from the needed global solidarity in the face of the pandemic to the evolving global order and the need for strengthening cultural and multilateralism, from food security to the challenges of education, from the importance of the role of women to the promotion of peace. In doing all this, we intensified our partnerships with distinguished organizations, eminent Nobel laureates, and illustrious individuals. We doubled the numbers of our friends and members, and we are grateful to Dr. Shah of China, the co-chair of our Circle of International Friends. In addition to all these events, we are very active in solidarity initiatives in the global effort to confront the pandemic and its repercussions. We believe that Your Excellency has received positive feedback on this work from many quarters. We have also been participating in the drafting and distribution of statements at the time by most of our members and many additional notable personalities. And these letters gained both appreciation and media attention. There have been 12 of these open letters, and the most famous of these was the one advocating for a People's Vaccine Initiative. And even as we speak, our Prime Minister Gordon Brown of the UK, who sent a written greeting, is finalizing the last letter, which he will deliver to the G7, G20. Now, looking back at this year, it has been a period of intense activity, growing international presence of the NGIC, expanded partnerships with important international organizations and scientific institutions from the World Academy of Science to the Lancet Global Commission, and enhanced our presence on social media. And as I promised Your Excellency during our last meeting, we are now finalizing the steps to properly legalize the international leadership of the NGIC. And we hope to complete that in the coming weeks. Mr. President, I could go on and on, but everyone is eager to listen to you. So I promise that we will have all this and more in a report that we will have ready for your review and for distribution at the Global Forum later this week. We hope that Your Excellency is fully satisfied with the performance of the NGIC, both before and after the pandemic struck. And with your permission, I will now turn the meeting over to my honorable co-chair, President Mayra Vike Freiberger. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have a great privilege to have today a dialogue between NGIC and the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, His Excellency Ilham Aliyev. We will start this meeting with a presentation by the President himself, which will then be followed by a question and answer period, which the President graciously has accepted to be available for. Mr. President, we're looking forward to your view of where Azerbaijan stands today in this very complicated world, and what your vision is for its future and how it fits into the rest of the world. Mr. President, we're looking forward to your words.
Thank you very much, Madam President, dear co-chairs of the Nizami Gencevi International Center, Madam Vike Freiberger and Mr. Sarıgeldin. First of all, I'd like to greet all the participants of today's discussion and also apologize in front of our audience because as far as I know, we are online. So a slight delay was only due to technical issues. And I'd like to use this opportunity to express gratitude to the co-chairs and to members of Nizami Center for initiating this discussion because I think it's very timely. And the topics which you propose, Southern Caucasus, regional development and prospects for cooperation, I think it's now one of the important topics on the global agenda because there have been very radical changes in the Southern Caucasus recently, and of course the new situation needs new approaches. But first of all, I'd like to congratulate Nizami Gencevi International Center for its excellent performance during the time of pandemic, and the center adjusted itself very wisely to a new situation, and regardless the situation with the pandemic, continued its activity and continued in a new form. But as Mr. Sarıgeldin said, we hope to get together in Azerbaijan later this year to organize our regular Baku Global Forum. Also, during these 8 years of active performance, the center became one of the leading international institutions in the world, and its broad activity actually serves the cause of peace, cooperation, security, stability in the world, and members of the center are well-known, famous world politicians who run countries and international organizations for many years, so your experience really is a unique. So such a concentration of experience under one roof really is, I think, very unique in today's world. With respect to Azerbaijan's views on what happened and what is going to happen, of course, first of all, I'd like to say that the recent development in the region, Second Karabakh War, radically changed the situation. Therefore, there is a need for new approaches, the need for new agenda for South Caucasus. And I fully appreciate the topic of the discussion, regional development and perspective for cooperation, because that's what we really need. Due to the fact of occupation, which lasted almost 30 years, Azerbaijan openly declared its position that we will not cooperate with Armenia until the territories are liberated. And I think that Armenia itself now understands that they made a very big mistake because they lost time. If you look at today's situation in Armenia, we'll see that situation is much worse than when Armenia became an independent country, because today Armenia doesn't have army. It has been totally destroyed. It's in permanent political crisis for more than 6 months. There is a big degree of mistrust in society, mutual accusations, and some political leaders' rhetoric is beyond any acceptable framework. So they lost time. They were deprived from the initiatives of Azerbaijan with respect to energy and transportation development. And finally, they lost territories which they occupied and the territories which never belonged to them, neither by history nor by international law. But now, after the conflict is over, Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has been resolved primarily by Azerbaijan and then by a joint declaration of the 10th November last year. We need to look to the future. And despite 30 years of occupation and large-scale destruction and devastation of the liberated territories, Azerbaijan is ready to look to the future, to plan its future as a part of integrated region of Southern Caucasus. We hope that the time will come that we will really talk about active cooperation in the Southern Caucasus and integration. And we have already made very important proposals and initiatives, by the way, which reflected in the joint declaration of November 10th, 2020, particularly with respect to opening of communications and opening a new transportation corridors. And I can tell you that the work have already started on implementation of this project, and Azerbaijan already allocated technical and financial resources for that. And when Zangezur corridor is opened, it will open new opportunities for all the countries of the region. Therefore, I'd like to say that Azerbaijan is open for cooperation, open for planning our common future, because we are neighbors, whether we like it or not. We have to live side by side, and we need to learn once again how to live side by side. It's not easy. Emotions are here, especially when Azerbaijani people visit liberated territories and see total destruction. You can imagine what kind of emotions they have. But the role of politicians is to defend their agenda and to explain that only through interaction we can provide sustainable development and peace and security in the region. Probably I will stop now because during the several Baku Global Fora, you know that all the fora, at all the events I was talking about Nagorno-Karabakh, so you know exactly what happened, how it happened, the results. I think there's no need to repeat, and better to have more time for our dialogue. So thank you very much, and I'm ready to answer any question you have.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are most grateful for your clear and forceful introductory presentation and for this readiness of yours to engage in a dialogue with the members and friends of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center. This very special event has attracted a great deal of interest, and our audience are delighted at the opportunity to address questions to you in person. As a result, we have received requests to participate in this dialogue from a great many of today's participants. And as I take over the moderating of this session, my first request to the audience, to all the participants, will be, please try your best to be concise in framing your question, so that all of those who follow you will also get a chance to fit into the time frame that has been so generously allotted to us by His Excellency, the President. In the interest of producing as lively a session as possible, I have regrouped speakers in groups of 2 or more in terms of the topics of interest that they have indicated. For each general topic, I will introduce the first speaker and ask them to pose their question, then introduce the second speaker and let them ask their question, and only then turn to His Excellency the President to give his answers. This should help to expedite matters and allow us to introduce the greatest number of questions possible in the time available. Let us open this question and answer dialogue by first learning to the questions of the role of Azerbaijan as an important geostrategic country, as an important regional player. I give now the floor for the first question to Mr. David Merkel, Director of South and Central Asian Affairs at the U.S. National Security Council at the White House between 2005 and 2007, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, and Board of Trustees member of Nazarbayev University. Mr. David Merkel, the microphone is yours. Do we have Mr. Merkel connected at this moment? If not, we will pass on to the second question, and that was one posed by Mrs. Eka.
Am I here? Can you hear me?
Mr. Merkel, are you there?
Yes.
Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, it's good to see you, and I look forward to seeing you in person in Baku soon. In the grand chessboard, a great admirer of yours and of Azerbaijan, the late Zbigniew Brzezinski, called Azerbaijan a vital strategic pivot, pointing out that an independent and vital Azerbaijan would bring Caspian energy to the West, while conversely, stymied Azerbaijan would leave Central Asia to Russian domination. A lot has happened since that time period, and it's a good time to re-examine the grand chessboard. With the resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh, with China's Belt Road Initiative, I wonder if you could speak about Azerbaijan's role of bringing energy to Europe, about the logistic possibilities of connecting Asia to Europe through a strategically important area, and also with the resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh, is there a role for the multilateral development banks to play a role? Thank you.
These are already a number of questions, but could I ask also our second questioner, Mrs. Eka Keshelashvili, Deputy Prime Minister of Georgia from 2010 to 2012, Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2008, to ask her question as well. Eka, please. I think we have a delay in reaching out to our participants. Eka, it is your turn to ask your question. Do you hear us? If not, we will return to her later. Mr. President, would you please then go ahead in answering Mr. Merkel's question?
Thank you very much. There'll be actually 3 questions put by Mr. Merkel, and I'd like to try to answer on the issues related to energy delivered to Europe. Just the last day of the last year was remarkable from point of view of completion of the historical project of the Southern Gas Corridor. So 3,500 kilometers of free integrated gas pipelines have been put together and connected as a whole project, and the first gas delivery of Azerbaijani gas to Europe happened. That was really a historical event, because the project was really a big challenge from all points of view, from financial, political, technical point of view, and we really worked as a good team of several countries. Some of them are members of EU, and we really made a great contribution to Europe's energy security. And taking into account the new discoveries in Azerbaijan and new level of production of natural gas, so it's a project for decades ahead. And the gas from Azerbaijan is new gas for European continent, is now the only new source of gas to Europe. And really it also strengthened to a large degree bilateral and multilateral relations between the countries involved. So that issue is considered to be completed. And talking about the logistical support to connect Asia and Europe, and Chinese initiative of Road and Belt Initiative, this also is a very important part of international agenda, and Azerbaijan on its territory completed all the necessary transportation projects. And together with partners, already we have a connection, important connection between Asia and Europe as a part of Belt and Road Initiative, and providing our infrastructure, including our seaport, including the biggest, the Caspian, the vessel fleet, and railroad opportunities in order to be part of this important project. So we invested in this project financially and politically, and I hope that these two important dimensions, energy security and transportation security, will play an important role not only for future economic development in Azerbaijan, because it will generate additional revenues, but it will seriously contribute to regional stability, because the countries become interdependent, countries become members of one team as we sit in one boat, and of course the level of mutual support will definitely grow. With respect to the last questions of Mr. Merkel about international banks, I can tell you that when we were implementing the Southern Gas Corridor project, all the major international financial institutions were our partners. World Bank, EBRD, Asian Development Bank, European Investment Bank, and the bank which was founded by China, the Infrastructure and Investment Bank. So all the leading international financial institutions were part of the project, and also that was a clear message to commercial banks also to support. With respect to the projects on the liberated territories, we have allocated for this year reconstruction $1.3 billion from our budget. And frankly speaking, we are not looking for some loans from the banks. What we would appreciate is opportunities to invest, because there's a lot of opportunities of investments on the liberated territories. We have great plans of reconstruction. Therefore, we'll be happy that banks will help foreign and local investors to implement projects on the liberated territories rather than to provide direct financial support to Azerbaijan, which actually we do not need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Eka Geshelashvili has joined us. Eka.
Thank you. Thank you. I was almost defeated by the technology myself. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Your Excellency, Azerbaijan has played a pivotal role for transformational projects in the region. It enabled South Caucasus to become an important contributor to common energy security of Europe and for development of international trade and connectivity on a global scale. How would you assess developments as of now in this direction? Do you think there is new momentum for scaling up progress? Perhaps there are some missing links and challenges that we need to take into account as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your appreciation of the role Azerbaijan is playing. But I can tell you that alone we wouldn't have been able to complete these important projects. And therefore our cooperation with Georgia throughout the time of the implementation of all these projects was of strategic importance. And as you very well know, the first pipeline which was built from Azerbaijan in the time of independence was a pipeline to Georgia, Baku-Supsa. And that was commissioned in the end of the 90s and actually allowed Azerbaijan to start exporting oil to international markets. And Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan was built 6-7 years later. So that was a really milestone of development. That was a reflection of our joint will to create absolutely new situation in the region of Southern Caucasus. And it's obvious that energy and transportation projects transformed Southern Caucasus, two Southern Caucasian countries, Georgia and Azerbaijan, allowed these countries to get additional financial resources, increased importance of our countries for our international partners, and build a stronger partnership which allowed us later to invest in transportation projects, in projects related to connectivity, in power generation. So today, this really foundation of what we have today in the Southern Caucasus was due to our joint efforts. With respect to the missing links, I think what you asked, I think after completion of the last portion of Southern Gas Corridor Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, all the links have been connected. At the same time, the completion several years ago of Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railroad also connected all the links in the area of Caspian, Caucasus, and Turkey. Therefore, we can think about future plans from point of view of creating new links. For instance, one of the projects which we are now working on is expansion of our presence in European energy market by joining the infrastructure of the Western Balkans. We are now in the active phase of negotiations with several countries of former Yugoslavia with respect to gas delivery to those countries. You know, after you complete one important project and think that the mission is completed, then some new ideas come, and this is how the progress is showing itself. So I'm sure that we'll find another dimensions of fruitful cooperation and expand the team of countries and expand our friendship.
Thank you, Mr. President. The two following questions will address Azerbaijan's relations with specific countries. May I ask the first one from Ms. Tipi Livni, who was Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel between 2006 and 2009. Tipi, are you there?
Apparently it takes time.
It takes time to connect. So I will pass on while she connects. The second questioner is His Excellency Viktor Yushchenko, President of Ukraine from 2005 to 2010. Viktor, the floor is yours.
Дорогий пане президент.
Yes.
Tipi, have you been connected? Shall we start with Tipi, please? Go ahead, Tipi.
Thank you. And first, I would like to express my appreciation for opening an office in Israel for enhancing tourism and commerce. And thank you for that. My question relates to the US, the new administration in the US and Russia. And what is your expectations on their policy regarding the region and the challenges that the region is facing?
And Mr. President, then we pass on now to President Viktor Yushchenko with his question.
Дорогий пане президент,
Dear Mr. President,
дорогий Ільхам Гайдарович, я хотів привітати перш за все з вирішенням одного із найважливіших національних питань – це відновлення територіальної цілісності Азербайджану.
first I want to congratulate you on resolving one of the most important territorial issues, that is the return of Nagorno-Karabakh to Azerbaijan.
Це мрія, яка потребувала 30 років реалізації.
This was a dream that took 30 years to realize.
Ільхам Гайдарович, ми у 2006 році створили регіональну організацію ГОАМ із 4 країн.
As you know, in 2006, we created the organization Guam, which consisted of 4 countries,
З порядком денним питання безпеки,
which was supposed to address security
економічна
issues,
співпраця,
economics cooperation,
гуманітарна співпраця
humanitarian cooperation,
і інфраструктурні проекти.
and infrastructure.
Як ви дивитесь сьогодні на дорожню карту, на план роботи цієї організації?
What do you see as a roadmap for the future work of this organization?
Mr. President, we're
Thank
looking
you.
forward to your answers.
Thank you very much. First question about our expectations regarding the policy of United States and Russia in the region. Russia and United States, as a co-chairs of the Minsk group for almost 30 years, were part of the active process of negotiations between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Unfortunately, these negotiations did not produce any result. But at the same time, it's also clear, especially now when relations between the United States and Russia are at a very low level, that issue of conflict resolution was probably the only one issue where Russia and the United States had a very active and very open cooperation. So in a certain way, Azerbaijan, with its conflict, play important role for at least having one area where these 2 superpowers can sincerely cooperate. At the same time, I'd like to say that before the pandemic, highest military officials of Russia and United States, chiefs of the staffs of the armies of both countries, had regular meetings in Baku. And also Chief of Staff of Russian Army and military commander of NATO several times had a round of negotiations again in Baku. They could have selected any other destination, but choosing Baku really is a good reflection of independent foreign policy of Azerbaijan, first of all, and also is a reflection of the high level of respect to our country and trust to our country. We understand, we consider these factors as the main factors in choosing this location of Azerbaijan. With United States, our relations are less diversified than with Russia, and this is obvious because with Russia we have a long history of communications and we are neighbors. Therefore, with Russia, our relations are very diversified. They cover almost every area. With United States, our main areas of cooperation are counterterrorism, peacekeeping operations, whether it's in Iraq or in Afghanistan, now energy security and some other areas. The policy of both countries towards Azerbaijan has always been stable and predictable, as well as our policy towards these countries. And with both countries, we have relations of strategic importance. Of course, it's different agenda, but very open, very clear, and without any surprises, because we always say what we mean and we always stand behind the word we pronounce. And I think that's one of the reasons why we managed to establish good relations with many countries, and not only Russia and United States are among these countries which don't have good relations between themselves. So I think that the policy of United States and Russia with respect to Azerbaijan will continue to be very stable. And my recent communications with high-ranking officials, with President of Russia, with National Security Advisor of United States and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia demonstrate that we really want to expand our cooperation, and both sides consider these relations as strategically important. So after a resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, I think it will be easier to plan for the future, because this conflict was a kind of to a certain degree was blocking some areas of cooperation where we could have very active format of cooperation and could not have it due to this or that reason. So resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict creates absolutely new atmosphere, and we hope that Russia and United States will continue to pay big importance to our country. Also, I'd like to answer the question of dear President Yushchenko about Guam, and he reminded about time where this organization transformed and it got a new name, Organization for Democracy and Economic Development. And as Viktor Andreevich correctly pointed out, the agenda of Guam was very broad, and he remembers very well that during his term of the presidency of Ukraine, probably that was the most active term of Guam. We had regular summits every year in different capitals. We had informal discussions. We had really very active phase of development of this organization, and also presidents of some other countries on many occasions joined us, because it showed that organization is attractive. But also my dear friend Victor knows very well that always it was Ukraine who played the leading role in Guam. Therefore, changes of political agenda after he left office actually led to some deterioration of organization. It stopped to be one of the priorities of Ukrainian foreign policy. And therefore, slowly, we started to see that Guam is losing momentum. There is less meetings, less communications, and less joint projects. Despite that, what we've been discussing during that time, particularly delivery of Azerbaijani oil to Ukraine, happened. And not only that, today Azerbaijan has a very broad distribution network in Ukraine. And oil supplies from Azerbaijan to Ukraine, which we worked with Mr. President Yushchenko actively, now is a reality. And again, it will largely depend on the agenda of Ukrainian government, whether Guam is still a priority of their foreign policy or not. And of course, that will be the main factor of organization, either to activate itself or to stay in a kind of a standby position. And of course, issues related to some domestic issues in the member states, to a certain degree, also created some difficulties, because in some countries the changes of government took place so rapidly so that even they could not even have time to formulate their foreign policy agenda. But Azerbaijan always was a stable country in this respect, and if there will be such a demand from all member states, of course, we will do what we think is right. At the same time, trade relations with Ukraine growing, with Georgia is growing, energy cooperation is growing, now transportation. So Ukraine was using Azerbaijani logistical and transportation network to transport goods to Central Asia at some time. So all that is possible. We need only just to plan future steps based on pragmatism, mutual support, which always Guam countries demonstrated to each other. I'd like to say that one of the important element of organization is that always in the United Nations we supported each other with respect to the territorial integrity of our countries. And that consolidated position was really very important for bringing our painful issues of our countries to the attention of international community.
Thank you, Mr. President. You pointed out earlier that we have been privileged to hear your views about the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh on more than one occasion. But you see, the topic of the day is the future of your relations with your neighbor Armenia. We have had 4 questions directed to this general topic. May we take them 2 by 2 and start with Ambassador Robert Segura, former USA ambassador to the Republic of Azerbaijan. Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Mr. President. It's a great pleasure to be able to be here and see you, albeit virtually. I am in Baku with the delegation from the board of the Caspian Policy Center, but I'm coming to you from the headquarters of the Nizami Gencevi International Conference. I should tell you that I and a number of other former U.S. ambassadors have been working with the Nizami Gencevi International Center on looking for initiatives that we can bring together world leaders under the Chatham House rules to discuss Nagorno-Karabakh. Your office, I might say, has been especially helpful, particularly Hikmat Ajiyev, in working with the NGIC in this regard, and we really thank you for that. Mr. President, if I can maybe burrow down a little bit on what you were saying earlier, and that is what role, what steps would you like to see the United States take in helping build relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia? Thank you, Mr. President.
Before you answer, Mr. President, shall we hear the question also of Mr. Franco Frattini, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy between 2002 and 2004, again from 2008 to 2011, and a former European Commissioner between 2004 and 2008. Mr. Frattini, we're ready for your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, it's a pleasure to see you once again, although virtually. And I want, first of all, to reconfirm the Italian full satisfaction for the excellent functioning of the Trans-Adriatic pipeline you just mentioned, that after a number of obstacles, we were able together to overcome. I have a question concerning Armenia. You mentioned that country. I have the impression that ordinary people living in Armenia, probably because of the local political propaganda, are not fully aware of their primary interest not to be isolated and to be very well connected with the rest of Caucasus and beyond. What is, in your view, your most concrete proposal to extend a friendly hand to make the Armenian people understand what probably the politicians in Armenia did not?
Mr. President.
Thank you. With respect to the what steps United States can undertake in order to normalize relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia, I think that the United States can do a lot. First of all, it's a leading country of the world. It's a country which is one of the co-chairs of the Minsk group. of OSCE. And by the way, as far as I understand and what I feel is that now Minsk Group is in a certain way in a search for new format of activity. Because as I said before, the conflict is resolved. Therefore, there should be new agenda for the Minsk Group. And of course, the three countries should agree between themselves, first of all. When I met Minsk Group ambassadors last time, and we were discussing about future, I said, I am expecting from them proposals, because it was them who generated the proposals. It was them who were trying to bring both countries closer in order to find a solution. Therefore, today, as far as I understand, Minsk Group in a way in a search for if a new identity, but at least a new area of activity. And as one of the co-chairs, the United States, of course, plays a very important role. At the same time, we know that the United States plays an important role in every region of the world. Therefore, I think efforts in order to help to normalize relations and to maybe explain to the communities that we have to live side by side will be highly appreciated. I think, and also answering the question of Mr. Frattini about what kind of proposals we can give to Armenian society for them to understand better. So this, I would prefer to answer both questions because they're interconnected. For many years, Armenian political establishment was demonizing Azerbaijan. They were misleading their public opinion. They were creating absolutely unrealistic picture of Azerbaijan and what we wanted. We wanted just to restore our territorial integrity. We wanted our territories back, which belong to us by history and by international law. We wanted 1 million Azerbaijanis to be able to go back to their homeland. And our demand was legitimate. It was Armenia, the country which violated international law and occupied our territories. But the level of hatred towards Azerbaijan, Azerbaijanophobia, and demonization of Azerbaijan was so high in Armenian society that some part of Armenian society started really to believe that they are right. Therefore, what happened now is a very serious psychological, I would say, drama in Armenian society. They understand that the leaders who run this country for 30 years were lying to their people. They were lying even during these 44 days of Second Karabakh War, when they were saying that they are, winning the battle, when they were saying that they are taking control of new territories, and de facto everybody knew that absolutely different is happening on the ground. So the first, I think there should be a kind of a very clear understanding of the reality. The new reality emerged, was created, if I put it more correctly, by Azerbaijan in the region, and Armenia, its society, must get adjusted to this new reality. And there's no one they can blame except their leaders. All the leaders since the beginning of the independence, they led the country to catastrophe. And what happened during the war was just triumph of justice and triumph of international law. It was implementation of United Nations Security Council resolutions. Therefore, first what they should do, they should stop demonizing Azerbaijan. Second, they should refrain completely from any even verbal, attempt to take revenge. Unfortunately, these revanchist feelings are very broadly present in the Armenian political spectrum. Now they are on the eve of parliamentary elections, and we see that the temperature is growing, and the only factor which unites all the political forces which are ready to eliminate each other is Azerbaijanophobia. And they continue this policy, which is absolutely counterproductive, which led to the fact that Armenia could not become a really independent country. It is totally dependent country, politically, economically, from military point of view. And the reason is occupation. If not for occupation, Armenia could have had much more leverage, much more opportunities for building an independent or half-independent foreign policy. But regardless what happened, once again, we need to look to the future. I said many times publicly, we need to turn the page. We need to look to the future. And we already made a proposal, but unfortunately, Armenian leadership did not respond. I several times said that we are ready to start working on peace agreement with Armenia. In order to put an end to war, in order to minimize or eliminate any risk of potential military standoff, we need to have a peace agreement, we need to have a border delimitation with Armenia. All that needs joint efforts. We cannot do it unilaterally. In the meantime, after the war stopped, after the 10th of November, we made several important gestures in order to demonstrate that we are ready. We are ready to work together on important issues. One of them is a humanitarian. We immediately released all those who have been detained during the war, including civilians who were just left behind when Armenian forces were running away. And there were many elderly Armenian people whom we took care of, put them to the hospital and delivered to the Red Cross, and they safely returned back. When they occupied our territories in the beginning of the 90s, they didn't do the same. We looked in the forests, in the mountains for dead bodies, and we returned to Armenia almost 1,600 dead bodies of their soldiers. Just for comparison, I would say, after First Karabakh War, we still have almost 4,000 missing Azerbaijani military servicemen. Most of them have been killed, and they didn't return us any dead body. So this is a difference. Moreover, after war stopped, we have more than 100 people killed or wounded, severely wounded, on the mines. Armenia refuses to give us the map of mines. We know exactly that they have maybe at least 1 million mines map where mines are planted, and they refuse to give it to us. And you know, demining is a very difficult process and very costly and takes a lot of time. We need to recover the territories. Without demining, it is not possible. We allow Armenian citizens now to use 21 kilometers of the highway which connects Armenian cities through the territory which we liberated. And that's another gesture of goodwill. We allowed Russian Gazprom to transport natural gas to Armenia through the territory of Azerbaijan because there was a repair works on the Russian side. And for more than 1 month, Armenian consumers were getting gas from Azerbaijan. But did Armenian government inform their people about it? No. Even those detained military servicemen who have been released by us recently, 14 of them, and we did it voluntarily. They didn't even say thank you. They thanked everybody. They thanked Russian peacekeepers, they thanked American administration, but they didn't thank us, those who released these people. So it shows that they're not ready for normal behavior. They are not ready to stop demonizing Azerbaijan. And today, Azerbaijani is the worst insult in Armenian political vocabulary. If they want to insult each other, they call each other Azerbaijani. This is unacceptable for people who want to run the country. But again, what we have offered cooperation on transportation issues, particularly on the issues of opening of Zangezur corridor, which will connect Azerbaijan with its autonomous republic Nakhchivan. At the same time, Armenia will have railroad connection with Russia and with Iran, with two close friends. Railroad connection does not exist. So we offered that, and I can tell you that the process is going. The process has started. It's not easy, but it started, and we need the support. As coming back to the question of Mr. Sikuta, Ambassador Sikuta, we need the support of Minsk Group, co-chair countries, including the United States. We need the support from regional countries, including Turkey, which always supports very positive development in the region. And of course, we need the support of European Union, because that will be, I think, a unique format of cooperation. It will be very pity if Armenia misses this chance. So it's the last chance. 30 years have passed, and where they are now, as I said, is worse than they've been in 1991. So it's the last chance. If they miss it, then probably it will be even more difficult.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this very complete and detailed explanation of what is essentially a deplorable and sad situation, but which, of course, will have to evolve in the future, and it will have to improve at length. With your indulgence, we have two more questioners who would like to talk about the economic aspects of your relation to your neighbor. We turn now to His Excellency Valdis Zatlers, President of Latvia between 2007 and 2012. Valdi, you have the microphone. Sorry, Mr. President, we do have technical difficulties in linking up.
No
This
problem.
is there. Valdi, are you there? If not, while we wait for him to connect, shall I turn to His Excellency Rosen Plevnedev, President of Bulgaria from 2012 to 2017, for his brief question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm telling you on behalf of all of us how proud we are being members of NGIC, that also thanks to your leadership, but also the great secretariat, young, capable people we have, is strong, is global, is efficient. And as we are members of a lot of different organizations, we can see that NGIC is making a difference, and we thank you for that. And also, I want to tell you how excited we were with this great victory on the second Nagorno-Karabakh war under your leadership that restored rule of law, reunified Azerbaijan, and brought justice to people. And my question is linked to the regional economy of Nagorno-Karabakh. Can you give us some examples about how difficult the situation, how devastated the economy during all those years of occupation was, and what can we do as friends, as international community, to help by restoring the regional economy of Nagorno-Karabakh? Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we wait for Mr.
Mr. Zatlers, President Zatlers, are you there? We shall, when he logs on, if you, with your permission, Mr. President, we will return to him, and we shall go on now. A question from Mr. Abraham Foxman, Director of the Anti-Defamation League between 1987 in 2015. Mr. Foxman, are you long gone? And is your microphone on?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Mr. President, thank you for this opportunity to meet you, even though it's virtually, hoping to see you in person not too long. Mr. President, would you describe for us, please, Azerbaijan's relationship with the State of Israel, especially at this moment of the current crisis?
So first I will answer the question of President Plevin-Liev. And Mr. President, thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for your kind words about the victory and restoration of rule of law. We discussed many times the issue of resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict during my visit to your beautiful country and your visit to Azerbaijan. And I always highly appreciated your very straightforward position based on justice and based on international law. And thank you sincerely for your cordial congratulations. With respect to the area which has been liberated, as I said, everything is destroyed. I visited liberated territories many times. And when you go by car 100 kilometers, like 400, 450 kilometers you go by car, and you see only destroyed villages and cities. I've been many times already during these 6 months on the liberated territories, and 95% of the cities and villages totally destroyed. And this destruction was not made during the First Karabakh War, because it's not possible to destroy by bombs these cities. It was destroyed after, for several reasons. First, they were just taking the construction materials, they were taking the roofs, they were taking the windows, they were taking the stoves away. They were actually stealing these construction materials which were used to build houses and schools. And second reason was to erase Azerbaijani cultural heritage from those territories, because on the liberated territories which have been under occupation, more than 60 mosques were totally destroyed. And of course, another goal of Armenian occupants was to destroy the cities and villages so that never Azerbaijanis come back. And actually now there is nowhere to go back, because can you imagine the city of Agdam, which in Soviet times was one of the most developed cities of Azerbaijan, of more than 40,000 inhabitants only in the city, totally destroyed. City of Fizuli, about 30,000 inhabitants, 30,000 lived before war, totally destroyed. And when we liberated Fizuli in October, and I instructed our military servicemen to raise a flag on one of the buildings, they could not find the building. So we just raised a flag in the field. And all the other cities and villages the same. Therefore, a lot is to be done. All the infrastructure is destroyed, nothing. But we started already. We started. By the end of the year, we will provide this big territory with electricity, 100%. Will be provided with electricity. We already started to build roads. We started to build highways. And Armenians, when they were leaving, because there was a period after we signed the declaration on the 10th of November, there was a 20 days time when Armenians had to leave from free districts. Because free districts we liberated as a result of the statement which was signed on the 10th of November. Actually, it was a capitulation act by Armenia. And during these 20 days, they were burning the houses which they lived. And these houses were not built by them. They were built by Azerbaijanis whom they just threw away. So they were cutting trees, they were burning trees, burning houses, committing acts of vandalism. So everything must be done from scratch. We already started. We already have master plans for development. We invited international companies to make assessment of the damage. We will sue occupants in international courts. They were illegally exploiting our natural resources, particularly gold mines, and already the legal procedure against those companies which were involved there already started. And infrastructure projects have already started. I declared the liberated territories as a green energy zone. They'll be only mainly renewable, water, solar, and wind. And just for a better understanding of the territory, so liberated territories are equal to the territory of Lebanon. So we need to restore and build houses and all the infrastructure for more than 1 million people at the territory of Lebanon. A big part of it is high mountains, which is very difficult to conduct works. But we are committed to do it, and we will do it. But first we need to demine, because without demining, it is very dangerous. On the second question relating to our relations with Israel, I would say that the relations are very diversified. We have active trade cooperation, which is growing. Important area of cooperation is tourism. And they've been, before pandemic, regular flights, daily flights, connecting Azerbaijan and Israel, and many tourists from both sides were visiting each other, and many relatives live, because there's a big Jewish Azerbaijani diaspora in Israel, which lives there, and also there is a very active Jewish community in Azerbaijan. It's, I think, the biggest in the region, and Jewish community in Azerbaijan play a very important role in bilateral relations between Azerbaijan and Israel, because as a very active citizens of Azerbaijan, they do a great job in creating closer ties between two countries. Important sector of our cooperation is cooperation in the area of defense industry. This cooperation lasts for many years, and Azerbaijan has open access to Israeli defense industry products, and it is not a secret. And now we are in the phase of new development in that area. And also one of the very promising area for cooperation is agriculture, because as you know, Israel, in the difficult climatic situation, managed to create one of the most developed agriculture in the world. And therefore, it's a very good example for us, especially in the liberated territories, to use this technology, not only in this area, but in general. Technology is one of the important factor of our cooperation. So that would be, I think, my answer to the question.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Do we have President Zattlers on the line? We still do not have him. So shall we go on with a question from Mr. Farid Zakaria, who is the host of CNN's Farid Zakaria GPS. He's a famous American journalist. He has been an invited speaker to the Baku Forum. He has participated in NGIC organized conferences as a valued contributor. Mr. Zakaria, are you online? Are you connected? Farid, are you there? We continue with, and this is, you see, modern technology is so proud of itself, but when push comes to shove, it does have its failures. But Mr. President, we have some.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Are you there, Farid? Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely. We're glad to see you.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. I miss having the opportunity to come to Baku, which is a glorious city, especially the recent developments that have taken place over the last 2 decades. And I regret not being able to see you in person, Your Excellency. The question I have is, how do you view the new administration in the United States, the Biden administration? What would you hope to see from the administration in terms of policies toward the region and Azerbaijan?
Thank you, Mr. Zakari. Also very glad to see you. Hope you will join us later this year when we plan to organize a global forum in Baku. I remember our meeting here in Baku and very long discussion. And thank you very much for your very clear analysis of the past Azerbaijan passed during the times of independence. New administration in the United States is not new for us because we worked closely with Obama-Biden administration. And I remember my meeting with then Vice President Biden in 2016 in Washington, and very productive and good discussions on a broad range of issues of our bilateral agenda and international issues. And I remember that President Biden at that time was very well informed about the regional problematic and highly valued importance of relations between the United States and Azerbaijan. And we already had contacts. We just recently, I received a phone call from National Security Advisor to President Mr. Sullivan, and we discussed issues related to post-conflict situation in the region. At the same time, bilateral relations. We've been working closely on issues like counterterrorism, peacekeeping operations in Afghanistan. We've been from the very beginning, and we're still there. In Afghanistan, we keep our military servicemen. We even increased their number relatively recently. Important area of our cooperation is energy security. US always was very helpful in implementation of the big energy projects, and always supported Azerbaijan, whether it was oil pipeline or gas pipeline or investments of American companies. So really, we have very diversified relations in those areas which I mentioned, but we want to diversify them even more, particularly to cover the area of modern technologies, trade. The level of mutual trade is still very low, and other issues. And of course, we want also to have access to US military equipment. Unfortunately, we don't have access so far. That was probably related to the conflict with Armenia, but now, when conflict is over, it is resolved. I think there is no reasons why we shouldn't have cooperation in the area of defense industries with the United States. With respect to the hopes for new administration, of course, it will depend on the agenda of new administration towards our region. Our initial communications were very positive, and it gives us opportunity to make some analysis and make some outcomes of this, but it will probably need some more time before administration is fully established, and what will be their policy with respect to Southern Caucasus in the priority lists. That will mainly be the driving force of our cooperation. As you can understand, in relations between US and Azerbaijan, leading role is with US. It will be largely depending on their agenda, but we are ready to work closely as strategic partners to expand our cooperation. And I think that US can play a very important role in post-conflict development in the region. We know that there is a very active Armenian diaspora in the United States, which unfortunately played very damaging role to Armenian state, and mainly because of their radical position. Occupation lasted for so long, and they thought that it will be forever, but they were wrong. So now they mobilize all their efforts in order to present Azerbaijan as an aggressor, though we only liberated our own territories, nothing more than that. And we had a legitimate right to do it, and we've been waiting for that for almost 30 years. Imagine, from 92 until 2020 being in the phase of negotiations, when in 1993, UN Security Council adopted 4 resolutions demanding withdrawal of Armenian troops, which were on paper. So I'm sure that we will have new developments in our interaction with the new American administration, but post-conflict development is important. I think another area will be important is testing the opportunities of kind of interaction in the Southern Caucasus in general, because until now we had relations with Georgia, Armenia had relations with Georgia, and no relations, no cooperation between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Maybe now it's time to, to see whether it's possible to have kind of a trilateral format of cooperation. We are ready for that. But, and as I said before, we are ready to start working on peace agreement with Armenia. I think United States can use its potential and to persuade Armenia that this is the only way how to move forward. They should refrain from any even thoughts about revenge, because that will be for them very, very dangerous. So a lot of opportunities and a lot of hopes, but we're waiting for administration to be fully established and to have more clear messages how they want to build relations with us.
Thank you, Mr. President. I understand that my fellow Latvian and a fellow former president of Latvia, His Excellency Valdis Supplier, has joined us. Valdi, are you online? The floor would be yours. I was told that he has joined us. President Supplier, are you there? I'm sorry, we'll have to wait again because we should like to proceed expeditiously. And I'd like to introduce now a very important and valued guest to this meeting, a guest with whom the NJSC has established fruitful links of collaboration and representing a country that is one of the very large major players in the world today, Mr. Wang Chao, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of China between 2013 and 2019, and President of the Chinese People's Institute of Foreign Affairs at the moment. Mr. Wang Chao, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Your Excellency, Mr. President, as President of the Chinese People's Institute of Foreign Affairs, I feel very privileged to participate in today's video conference and listen to Your Excellency's keynote speech and comments. Friendship between China and Azerbaijan has a long history, and Your Excellency always attaches great importance to the friendly relations with China. Azerbaijan is one of the first countries to engage in the Belt and Road Initiative. And now we are in a world that undergoes profound changes and is confronted with the COVID-19 pandemic. We believe that no country in the world can be immune from the challenges and cannot be able to face the challenges alone. Bilateral challenges and the multilateral bilateral cooperation and the multilateral cooperation has become more important and even crucial than ever. So against this backdrop, I'd like to have Your Excellency's kind comment on how and in what areas our two countries can jointly bring the existing good bilateral relationship and cooperation to a higher level. Furthermore, Your Excellency laid out some years ago that development strategy of restoration of the Great Silk Road that will promote development in many areas, such as infrastructure, transport, energy, and people-to-people exchanges. China's Belt and Road Initiative covers these areas too. I'd like to hear Your Excellency's comment on how our two countries can align Azerbaijan's development strategy and China's Belt and Road Initiative so as to benefit our people. Thank you.
Thank you. We pay very big importance to our bilateral relations with China. And I'd like to say that during last years, these relations developed very successfully. And you correctly mentioned that Azerbaijan was one of the first countries which publicly supported the initiative of President Xi Jinping on One Belt and One Road. And we are now became an active participant to that initiative. And this also creates new dimension in our relations. I've been several times to China and several times had the opportunity to meet President Xi Jinping. And we have a very, I think, constructive and friendly relations between us. And during my last visit to China, a meeting with President in Beijing, during our bilateral meeting publicly, he said that, said about me, that he considers me a friend of China. I think this is a very good indicator of our relationship. And also, we consider President Xi Jinping as a friend of Azerbaijan. And many documents have been signed between us, political documents, documents related to transportation, to trade, to investment. And also like to use this opportunity to express gratitude to President Xi Jinping for his kind support in providing Azerbaijan with Sinovac vaccine. Our request was immediately met, and due to that fact, today Azerbaijan is among the leading countries in coping with this pandemic. Because of that, we managed up until today to vaccinate 1.9 million people. It's almost 20% of our total population. And 99.9% of vaccines were Chinese vaccine. And we've contracted millions of vaccines, and also we've contracted with other countries. But today, without that gesture of friendship, we would have been in a very difficult situation. So we highly value it as a gesture of friendship, of very close and cordial relations. On the issues related to Silk Road, we were doing our homework here in Azerbaijan together with our partners in Turkey and Georgia, connecting our railroad systems, creating connectivity, building a modern seaport in the Caspian, which can handle cargoes when expanded up to 25 million tons, and investing in modernization of the biggest in the Caspian, our fleet, Azerbaijan Shipping Company. And also, very soon, we hope preparation will be already completed in a groundbreaking ceremony for a creation of a new international free zone just next door to the seaport. And we hope that companies from China and other friendly countries will evaluate opportunities of investing there. Also, China is among 5 countries which companies now participate in reconstruction of the liberated territories. The first project of a smart village which we started to implement very recently, will also be a project where Chinese company Huawei will provide its modern technologies. So, and we count on a broader presence of Chinese companies in reconstruction of the liberated territories. Talking about the areas where we see great potential, you absolutely correctly mentioned them. Transportation, I think, is number one. Today, we already provide transit for many companies from China, which use this middle corridor going through Caspian, Azerbaijan, and further down to Europe. So this has very great potential. Chinese companies are among investors in our energy sector. We think that there could be a broader presence of Chinese companies in our energy sector. And projects related to infrastructure also in the liberated territories, this is number one priority. And I hope that there will be many Chinese companies who will work with us. And you also mentioned the important area, which is people-to-people contacts. And as you probably know, Chinese citizens do not need to have visas entering Azerbaijan. And before pandemic, we saw a very rapid growth in visitors from China. Also, I can say that now we have big expectations from our trade turnover. Azerbaijani export to China also started to grow, and we're grateful that these opportunities emerge. We already opened several representations in China and Azerbaijani houses in China, and also our trade representation. We have trade representation only in 3 or 4 countries, I think, and one of them is China. So relations are excellent, I would say, and the potential is even higher. And also I'd like to express gratitude to you personally and to your institute for active cooperation with Nizami Gencevi International Center. I highly appreciate it. I think it's very important for all of us, for Center, for our partnership, for our cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. With your permission, we shall be now making a big jump geographically, going back to the West, with 2 questions stemming from Southeast Europe. The first question is from Her Excellency Kolinda Grabar-Kitarovic, President of Croatia between 2015 and 2020. Kolinda, your question is on.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Mr. President. It's wonderful to see you, albeit virtually. The European Union has played and continues to play an exceptionally important role in my own neighborhood of the so-called Western Balkans. And the so-called Europeanization process has helped us all in building democratic institutions and developing a market economy. In addition, through the stabilization and association process, it has greatly contributed to resolving regional open issues. I believe that the future membership of all our neighboring countries in the EU is an essential prerequisite of peace, stability, and security of the whole region. Mr. President, how do you see the role of the European Union in your own region? How can the EU support the peace and reconciliation process? And what do you think the EU should do to support Azerbaijan in your peace efforts? How do you see the development of your relationship with the European Union, and why is it so essential that the EU be involved? Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I answer, or will we wait for another question?
Shall we ask Mr. Zlatko Lagumdzija, Board of Trustees member of Prime Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina from 2001 to 2002, remember this question, this last question, we will beg you to be as brief as possible because we seem to be running out of time.
Thank you. First, I hope connection is okay. First of all, Mr. President, I want to congratulate to you for your leadership in getting Nagorno-Karabakh in accordance with your legitimate right to have a territory integration and sovereignty of Azerbaijan and full alignment with international law and UN Security Council resolutions. I have to be personal and to express you my appreciation and gratitude for your personal and complete support for my country, Bosnia and Herzegovina, during this COVID crisis, as well as for your devotion and leadership for NGIC presence in Western Balkan. I'm sure that it is also linked to the fact that people and true leaders with grave experience of Srebrenica and Bojala are always on the same side of values and commitments for shared future in shared societies in which our different identities are our asset, not our liability. And in that respect, I would like to share your thoughts with us on your vision for Western Balkan as part of European space, your suggestions to leaders of Western Balkan major global stakeholders in our region, and in that context, it would be encouraging for us to hear expectations from NGIC, having in mind that as part of your guidelines, your personal guidance, is given to us previously, we have kept making significant footprint in the region. So finally, I want to thank you for your personal support we had on a journey along the NGIC mission, fulfilling enormous work, and have had great results done by young people in Secretariat, together with our wise leadership of co-chairs in this turbulent time that is hopefully behind us, and great Nizami principles of dialogue, respect, learning, and understanding on the pandemic and challenging circumstances proved again to be our greatest strength, which will guide us in the future as well. So thank you very much, Mr. President. Congratulations, and thank you for being with us and supporting NGIC, and looking for your guidance again. Thank you.
Mr. President, please. Mr. President, please.
First of all, I'd like to greet Madam President and once again express gratitude for hospitality, which was shown to me, my delegation, during my visit to Croatia, and also we remember your, Madam President, visit to Azerbaijan. And I hope to see you again in Baku later this year at the Global Baku Forum to continue our very fruitful and friendly discussions. With respect to the role of EU in the region, because we highly value this role, and the EU always was a good partner of Azerbaijan. EU is our main trading partner. Our main export is an export to countries members of EU. And with 1/3 of member states, Azerbaijan signed or adopted documents which are called the documents or declarations on strategic partnership. I think that Azerbaijan is unique in this capacity among the countries members of the Eastern Partnership, which Azerbaijan joined from the very beginning. And really having documents signed on strategic partnership with 9 members of EU really shows that we are good partners and strategic partners. Several years ago, we initiated a partnership priority agreement between Azerbaijan and EU, which also is important milestone. And now we are working on the new agreement between Azerbaijan and European Union. Due to the pandemic and then the Second Karabakh War, it was a little bit postponed. Then, of course, there was a change of composition of the Commission. Also, it took some time, but I hope that soon we will resume active phase of final stage of negotiations. I'd like to say that more than 90% of the agreement has already been agreed. So we have several issues, outstanding issues. Hopefully, within a short period of time, we will agree on that. And European Union and Azerbaijan, as you know, are very close partners on issues related to energy security. And Croatia actively participates always on a high level at the meetings of Advisory Council of the Southern Gas Corridor, which are organized by EU and Azerbaijan annually in February in Baku. And of course, the completion of the Southern Gas Corridor creates new opportunities for our cooperation with the European Union, because Azerbaijan already started to play an important role in the European Union's energy security issues. And as I said before, on our next agenda plans, we have expansion of the Southern Gas Corridor towards your region, particularly Ionic Adriatic pipeline, which, as far as I know, already becomes also part of the EU energy portfolio. I think this is very important because implementing this project will allow Azerbaijan to expand its presence on the gas market of EU and also non-EU, some of your other neighbors like Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro. And that will be alternative source for gas supply from Azerbaijan. And also after resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, I think there'll be more opportunities on issues related to transportation, because yes, we do have already direct railroad connection with Europe after we implemented the railroad connection between Azerbaijan and Georgia and Turkey, but hopefully if Armenia would not put artificial obstacles, we can also have another railroad connection through the territory of Armenia. So Armenia can also be part of regional development program that will give additional opportunities for security. European Union support of the peaceful development in the region is very important. I think that European Union can play a very important role in a post-conflict development in the region, because with the three countries of Southern Caucasus, EU have a very broad agenda of cooperation. I think one of the most efficient programs is twinning programs, very efficient, and we highly appreciate that. Also, of course, European Union is one of the leading international actors in the world, along with the United States, Russia, China, and Turkey. EU, I think, among the 5 leading international actors, countries and institutions, which has a potential of influence in different parts of the world. Therefore, of course, we would like to see more active cooperation between EU and Azerbaijan. And European presence in our territory already has a long history, since the first oil development in the world took place in Baku in the middle of 19th century. Since that time, European business was in Azerbaijan, and it returned after Azerbaijan gained its independence. So to put it as a kind of in a nutshell, very promising expectations about our cooperation. With respect to the comments of Mr. Legumzia, I'd like to express gratitude for congratulations with respect to the victory in the Second Karabakh War, and also gratitude for your appreciation for our support with respect to COVID. We provided support, financially, humanitarian support to more than 30 countries of the world, and of course Bosnia and Herzegovina, as our friend, was among them. And Nizami Gencevi International Center's more active involvement in Western Balkans, I think, is absolutely natural, because Western Balkans today, I think, play more important role than before for European affairs, for world affairs, and there is a big similarity between Balkans and Caucasus, and the similarity of history, similarity how countries got independence at more or less the same period of time. We have now very close similarity with Croatia, how we defended our territorial integrity and restored it, and many other similarities among people, among, if you look at traditions, and being in that part of the world, always I felt myself at home. So it really is a big asset. I know almost all the current leaders of countries of Western Balkans. I know all the previous leaders since 2004, and I know that they're very knowledgeable and responsible personalities. Therefore, I'm not in a position to give any suggestions. They know how to run their countries and what is best for their peoples. But with respect to your suggestion to give guidance to Nizami Gencevi International Center in Western Balkans, once again, I only can congratulate the center for keeping these issues in the focus of its attention, because on the global agenda, situation in the Western Balkans, whether it's security, whether it's multiculturalism, or any kind of potential risks with respect to radicalization. I think these are all very important issues which should be always on agenda. And I hope that peoples in Western Balkan countries will live in peace, in prosperity, and Azerbaijan has friendly relations with all of them. And I will do my best in order to strengthen these relations in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a speaker who has been difficulties logging on. President Zatlers, are you on? Because if you are, the microphone is yours. President Valdis Zatlers, are you there? I'm told that he is on, but for some reason he doesn't seem to hear us. Mr. Zatlers, we have been trying to reach you for some time. We're told on the telephone that you're there, but we don't hear you. I'm terribly sorry, but we'll go on. Mr. President, 2 questions about your immediate neighborhood, one after another. First, from His Excellency Boris Tadic, President of Serbia from 2004 to 2012, followed by Ehud Barak, the Prime Minister of Israel, from 1999 to 2001. Boris, let's start with you. And dear colleagues, would you please turn off your microphones if you are not the ones about to speak, because we are having some audio interference. Would you be so kind? Make sure to turn off your microphones when you are not speaking. Boris, your turn for a question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. President, first of all, I would like to express my appreciation for having the opportunity to talk with you about such important regional and global issues. And also, I would like to thank the General Secretariat of Nizami Ganjavi and court chairmen for having the opportunity to talk with you. In that context, Mr. President, I would like to ask you something that I consider possibly important. Having in mind our experience on the Western Balkans regarding conflict and post-conflict period, sometimes I see a reconciliation process even more difficult and more sensitive. Do you see any role of Nizami Ganjavi and people from Nizami Ganjavi in terms of reconciliation process with Armenia in the region? That can be, from my point of view, interesting intervention and possible action for Nizami Ganjavi, which is a think tank basically oriented towards Azerbaijan and cultural heritage, but also can be practically used in that context. And second, South Caucasus is a very sensitive area of geostrategical interest of big power, Russia, United States, and China, but also Turkey and Iran. Do you see any negative impact of some disputes Turkey and Iran are having with some of these big power in South Caucasus region? Thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Saka, kad vairāk es nevaru prasīt Zatleram aizsūt.
Do you hear me?
Mr. President, would you answer these 2 questions, please?
Yeah, the second I didn't get yet, from Mr. Barak.
Mr. Barak, yes, oh, sorry. Mr. Barak. You are, unmute yourself, Mr. Barak.
Do you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
Yes.
Mr. President, first of all, congratulations for the victory in Nagorno-Karabakh,
Thank you.
which could not have been achieved without the great persistence and never losing sight of the need finally to win it. My question is about Iran. Assuming that the JCPOA, the agreement will be renewed, and whoever will be elected president, the Ayatollahs will be still in power in the coming several years. What's the kind of direction you see to the relation between Iran and its neighbors and the whole region?
Mr. President, now we do have two questions.
Yes. Thank you very much. On the issue related to the role of Nizami Center in reconciliation, I think it will be the role can be highly valuable because Nizami Center has a great experience in addressing issues related to global politics, issues related to multiculturalism, issues related to conflicts. And during the Baku Global Forums and during the activity of the center throughout these years, I think the concentration of the most important issues on the global agenda always demonstrated the wisdom of members and co-chairs of the center. Reconciliation will take time because the wounds are still, very painful, and especially for Azerbaijani people who suffered from this aggression, from this injustice. During the time of occupation, we could imagine what was the situation on then occupied territories because there have been from time to time some journalists, there have been from time to time some visitors to those territories. So we had more or less impression, but we could not imagine the scope of devastation and actually the scope of hatred. Because during the First Karabakh War, it was Armenia who attacked us. It was Armenia who committed Khojaly genocide. It was Armenia who committed ethnic cleansing against Azerbaijanis and deported 1 million Azerbaijanis from Armenia, from occupied territories. We did not do anything like that. So it was very difficult for me to understand why they did what they've done, why they had such a big, level of hatred against those people who did not do anything harmful to them, for those people who opened their arms, embracing them when they were brought to our region in the middle of 90s from Anatolia and Persia. Therefore, reconciliation will take time. The wounds are still fresh. But I think to talk about that, to select a right paradigm of development is important, because it will depend on that. What will be the agenda? So far, we don't see any positive comments from Armenian political spectrum, neither from opposition nor from the government. It became very common to insult the feelings of Azerbaijani people and to, as I said prior, demonize us. What will be after elections in June, we do not know. What ideology will prevail, but so far their ideology of Azerbaijanophobia, hatred, and expansionism actually led to destruction of their own society. And what they have now, there's no one to blame but themselves and their leaders. But I think the center can play an important role in helping Armenian side to choose the right path. It will take time if they make a right choice to achieve some progress, but we are ready. Despite of the fact that we were the suffering side for 30 years, we are ready, I said many times, to turn the page, to open a new chapter, to talk about future, not to talk about the past. The biggest mistake and the biggest problem of Armenian governments they were talking only about the past. And in many cases, the past which they manipulated with, which they used for political purposes, which they pretended to be a victim aggression in order to get political dividends. They actually were exploiting the history which to large degree they created from zero. And they did not think about the future. We thought about the future. Yes, we've been occupied. We had 1 million people homeless. We had totally destroyed economy, but we thought about the future. We thought about the time when we will return to our homeland, to Karabakh land, and we did everything to do it. And that's how we won the war. The main factor was that. So now they need to think about future, not to think about past and not to try to exploit, these items. But I think at one of the future gatherings, maybe at the next forum, one of the topics could be post-conflict situation, because it's very challenging. We haven't been in this situation. For us, it's new. For Armenia, it's new. For the world, it's new. And it's very difficult to find in the recent history something similar to what happened after so many years, within 44 days, to restore territorial integrity and to put a flag in the Shusha castle, in the city, which was not possible to imagine that could be taken by empty hands, actually. So, to summarize this, I would appreciate, and maybe we can think together how maybe Armenian representatives could also participate in some events and maybe to bring their position and to defend their position. And I think that will be very helpful. On other question of President Tadic with respect to Russia, US, China, and neighbors, Turkey and Iran, as far as I got the question, it was whether it will create some complications or some conflicts or some contradictions. I don't think so, because with all these countries, our relations are well established for many years. With each of them, we have our own agenda, and it is positive agenda. With all these 5 countries which President Tadic mentioned, we have very good bilateral relations, and in some cases we have trilateral format, like Turkey, Iran, and Azerbaijan. We have a trilateral format of cooperation, and ministers of foreign affairs meet regularly. And our policy always was, from the very beginning, that Azerbaijan, we clearly understood that the country has a big natural resources. It has a very important location. It's just between Europe and Asia. Especially during the last years of development, country became fully self-sufficient on economic track, and economic independence was achieved. We fully understood that there could be interests, and these interests could confront each other, but our policy was that Azerbaijan should not be an area of confrontation, but area of cooperation. And it actually happened. Therefore, I don't foresee any, difficulties in dealing between our neighbors and big powers and Azerbaijan in the future. And with respect to the question of Prime Minister Barak, Prime Minister, thank you, first of all, for your congratulations. With respect to the victory, highly appreciate what you said. And as you mentioned, there will be presidential elections in Iran next month. With current Iranian government, we established a very fruitful bilateral cooperation and a very active dialogue. Many documents have been signed. And actually now, after liberation of the territories, we restored 132 kilometers of our state border with Iran. That territory was under occupation by Armenia. So, and actually our military operation, one of the directions of our military operations was just the direction by the Araz River, just on Iranian, close to Iranian border. So 132 kilometers of border with Iran restored, and this creates, of course, new opportunities. And we hope that the new government after elections will also conduct a policy of closer ties with Azerbaijan, because our economic cooperation is growing. Transportation projects are also create new opportunities. After resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, I think all the countries in the region can find new opportunities, new economic incentives for themselves. We need just properly plan our joint steps, that these steps lead to stability, security, and economic development.
Mr. President, we now have questions concerning international import. And we start with an old friend of Nizami Ganjavi and a member of the Board of Trustees, Mr. Amr Moussa, who was Secretary General of the Arab League from 2001 to 2011 and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt from 1991 to 2001. Mr. Moussa, the microphone
yes,
is yours.
Thank you. Mr. President, thank you very much for intervention you have started this meeting with. At the same time, let me congratulate you on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr and the end of Ramadan, which took place last week.
Don't have connection? No.
Excuse me?
We don't hear you, Mr.
Amr, we lost your audio. Would you check your microphone, Amr?
Yes, you hear me now?
Yes.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I will get into the questions immediately. Now, the first one is about the international situation and the growing tension between the two superpowers, the United States and China, and the role that other countries should play in order to prevent the escalation of such tension. I believe that the time has come for us in the International Center, the Nizami International Center, to think, to contribute to the world thinking about what should we do. I am one of those who believe that another visit to the non-aligned notion, but model 21st century, that all of us would come together and work diligently to prevent any further tension, and of course to lead the work for renovation of the multilateral system and for the cooperation vis-a-vis the pandemics, the climate change, and so on. The point about non-alignment is central, and non-alignment with Europe, with other countries, not the same composition as last century, but a new composition, because all of us, North and South now, rich and poor, all of us have an interest in not allowing tension to take place in international relations that would lead to confrontation. That is, what do you think about that, Mr. President? And the second one is about Jerusalem. The second one is about Jerusalem. I believe that, and we in the Middle East and in so many places believe that the situation that took place in Jerusalem.
Mr. Moussa, we
the inhabitants of the city.
Again, the line.
The microphone, Mr. Moussa, we've lost you. Is it possible?
You hear me now?
Now, yes.
Yes.
You hear me now?
Yes, we got you back.
My second question is
Please,
about Jerusalem.
brief.
Yes, it's about Jerusalem. Now the situation in that the time has come in the community and for the think tanks to contribute to lessening the tension and work for Jerusalem being the capital of two states but one city, a solution that would come to be put on the table for the Israelis to benefit from, for the Palestinians to benefit from, one city but two capitals. What do you think of that, Mr. President?
Mr. President, you have had a number of questions from Mr. Musa, but may we still hear also the question from Madame Maria Fernanda Espinosa, President of the 73rd United Nations General Assembly, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ecuador between 2017 and 2018, Minister of National Defense between 12 and 14, somebody from a different continent, but with a brief question. Madame Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you, Mr. President. Very short question. Number one, I cannot avoid to acknowledge and recognize the outstanding work of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, of our brilliant co-chairs, and our very efficient Secretary General. I'm a very proud member of NGIC. One very brief comment in listening to you, Mr. President, is I remembered our peace process with Peru after 50 years of war, border war, and dialogue and diplomacy is the only way forward for trust building and reconciliation. Especially when you were discussing the great challenge of demining, for example, as Minister of Defense, I was personally in charge of demining after our peace process. So my question is on post-conflict and on how you see the role of the United Nations in building confidence, in trust building, but also in the economic recovery. How do you see the challenges ahead? You have profusely responded to what are the economic challenges, but how is that you see the role of the UN in supporting? The UN has a great experience in peace building, and I think that your comments would be much welcome. Thank you again for this opportunity to have a dialogue with you, Mr. President Aliyev. And I hope to see you in person very soon in Baku as well. Thank you. And you.
Thank you. It will be great to see you in Baku later this year. First, the questions from Mr. Musa on the global tension between big superpowers and what role, as far as I got the question correctly, non-aligned movement can play. Of course, non-aligned movement is a movement. It's not even an organization. And when Azerbaijan assumed the chairmanship in the movement at the summit in Baku, when we had a summit, I said that we will defend justice and international law. And we're committed to that. We're committed to Bandung principles, which reflect the basic principles of international law. And since that time, Azerbaijan is keeping its word, because we want more consolidation in non-aligned movement. There are 120 countries, and not all of them have good terms with each other. But I'd like to say that all of them voted for Azerbaijan to be a chair. That shows that our sincere, open policy friendly policy really is appreciated by a broad international community, because it's the second international institutions after United Nations with respect to the member states. Non-aligned movement never was involved so far in issues related to reduction of tension between big superpowers. And I don't think it will be right now for us as a chair to interfere into the process, because I think will definitely be very glad to see reduction of tension. And as we know, the dialogue between US and Russian administration on the level of foreign ministers have started. And we have big hopes that this dialogue will lead to reduction of tension, because escalation of tensions is not in the interest of international community. We need predictable world, we need safe world, world where security and stability become a priority. And therefore, we are ready, of course, to make our contribution. But at this moment, I think we need to see and observe what is happening in relationship between the big superpowers. At the same time, as a chair of non-aligned movement, we launched several initiatives. First, we had an online summit on COVID-19. Then we initiated and were supported by more than 100 countries the special session of United Nations General Assembly on COVID-19, and last December this session took place. And it was very important because we delivered a very clear message about the difficulties with respect to distribution of vaccines. And vaccine nationalism is already a terminology which is used by international leaders, by leaders of international organizations. And we were strongly opposing the actions of some countries which ordered vaccines several times more than they need, and actually deprived developing countries from their right to vaccinate and from their right to protect their health and their lives. And also with respect to vaccines, we're advocating for a bigger support to developing countries. Most of non-aligned movement members are developing countries, to provide support from international donors to those countries which cannot afford purchasing the vaccines. So a non-aligned movement will continue its efforts. With respect to second question of Mr. Musa on the recent tensions in the Middle East, our position always was straightforward. Again, we advocate for international justice, international law, implementation of UN Security Council resolutions. We've been a victim of this selective approach to implementation of Security Council resolutions. In some cases, as you know, these resolutions have been implemented within days. In our case, they haven't been implemented at all. For 27 years, we implemented them ourselves, restoring territorial integrity. And of course, we always advocate for peaceful resolution of disputes, and of course, reduction of tension in the Middle East, I think now is in the interests of international community. We have a very straightforward position with respect to Jerusalem. Our position is based on the two-state solution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and we several years ago we held a donor conference in Baku to support Palestinians. So I think this position is fully in line with international law. So two-state solution, reduction of tensions, peaceful negotiations, and sincere desire to find a solution. It's difficult to find a solution. It was difficult in our case to find a solution, but I think the joint efforts of international community and big powers. Of course, Azerbaijan is not a country which can influence relations between big countries, but as a NAM chair, of course, we will defend consolidated position of NAM members, and we, on the summit of the General Assembly, I spoke in my capacity as a NAM chairman, and my speech was agreed among all the member states. So on this issue, the approach will be the same. On issue raised by Madam Espinosa, the role of United Nations in post-conflict settlement. First, I'd like to say that, and it's not a secret now, that United Nations need reforms. There should be a very clear vision with respect to implementation of Security Council resolutions, because it should not be selective, it should not be based on double standards. And in our case, there have been 4 resolutions adopted in 1993 by Security Council, and 3 co-chairs of the Minsk group are 3 permanent members of Security Council. And they had to do everything in order to implement resolutions which they adopted. And in those resolutions it was clearly said that Armenian troops there should be a full, unconditional and complete withdrawal of Armenian troops from the occupied territories. But it didn't work. So first, reforms, first mechanism of implementation of UN Security Council resolution, which will increase the international trust with this leading institution of the world. On the role of post-conflict settlement, of course, we work closely with United Nations structures, and UN High Commissioner for Refugee Office always was in close contact with us, because there have been more than 1 million refugees out of 8 million at that time population of Azerbaijan. And now we are working with this institution. We are in close contact with another structure of United Nations, UNESCO. We've been trying to invite UNESCO to visit occupied territories for many, many years. And the response was, UNESCO is not involved in issues related to political disputes. So during all these years of occupation, there have been no delegation of UNESCO which visited the occupied territories. But as soon as the Second Karabakh War stopped, we started to receive from UNESCO requests to visit the territories. I'm glad that this change has happened, and we are now in a final stage with UNESCO of agreeing on logistics with respect to their visit, and hopefully they will come with their mission next month, and we want them to see what Armenians did to our cultural and national heritage. With respect to trust-building measures, we would appreciate any international organization which will help us to contribute to trust-building measures between Armenia and Azerbaijan, whether it's OSCE, European Union, UNESCO, or countries in their national capacity. That will be highly appreciated by us, because without that, even if we have peace agreement, it will not be supported by the people. The people must also express their will, and without people-to-people contact, post-conflict situation can be resolved. So I think that United Nations will do what is necessary in order to help 2 countries to heal the wounds of war.
Mr. President, I'm pleased to see that our colleague President Zattlers has managed to reach the conference. So, President Zattlers, would you unmute your microphone? We have been waiting for you and looking forward to hearing from you. Mr. President Zattlers, please unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So you never give up the efforts, you know.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, my congratulations to Your Excellency, Mr. President. You never gave up your efforts of getting back your territories which were occupied by Armenia. But let's little bit have an imagination of the future. Do you can you imagine that one day there will be a comprehensive peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and maybe a security treaty with all the countries of the region? And it also corresponds, do you imagine that someday you will have, you know, free trade agreement between all the countries of the Caucasus? And if it is possible, what would be the roadmap by your vision?
Thank you, Mr. Zattlers, Mr. President. Thank you for your congratulations. You always, during the Baku Global Fora, you always openly spoke with a straightforward statements with respect to the conflict resolution, supporting international law and justice, and we know it and we highly appreciate it. I am absolutely sure that peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia is possible. And moreover, I can tell you that it is possible to achieve it in a relatively short period of time. What is missing now is a political will from Armenian side, because I already publicly on several occasions said that Azerbaijan is ready to start to work on the peace treaty with Armenia. And of course, if this treaty is signed, issues related to security, to non-use of force, to acceptance of realities which now we have on the ground will be integral part of this peace treaty. What is necessary to do, I think, to wait until parliamentary elections take place in Armenia. And we understand that period in Armenia is sensitive. And I think that today, if somebody in Armenia would talk about peace agreement with Azerbaijan, it will not add popularity to that person. But again, leaders of the country should think about the state, should not think about their political career. And in this respect, we hope that after elections, we will have some more clarification on that. Peace treaty, of course, presumes recognition of territorial integrity of both countries. And we are ready to do it. We are ready to recognize publicly territorial integrity of Armenia. And of course, Armenia should recognize territorial integrity of Azerbaijan in its international borders. And as you know, Nagorno-Karabakh is part of Azerbaijan, and there is no doubt about that. It was during the time of occupation, and it is now, and it will be there forever. Therefore, they should put down all the attempts to talk about status of Nagorno-Karabakh. It is not a question which can be discussed. Now, according to our information, in the territory which is under control of the Russian peacekeepers, there are 30,000 people living there. And those people who live there, they're our citizens. And we consider them as our citizens who've been brainwashed by Armenian propaganda. So if peace treaty is reached, then of course there could be second step, as you said, free trade between three South Caucasian countries. and it is also possible. So we are ready for that. We will wait for positive response from Armenian side.
Mr. President, you have been very patient with us and gracious in allowing us 2 hours of time. We have a question still on our original list to be answered. And once you have answered that one, I would ask you whether you will be ready to take on another last question. But let us go on now to Monsieur Yves Leterme, former Prime Minister of Belgium, 2008, 2009 to 2011. Monsieur Leterme, the microphone is yours, but please, colleagues, do turn off your microphones who will not be speaking now. Please turn off your all microphones except Monsieur Yves Leterme.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear me. Mr. President, first of all, let me thank you, greet you from Brussels, but also thank you for the opportunity to meet online, and also commend you for your leadership and for using the right arguments for the turn of history that was possible for the territories we have been discussing this afternoon. I will be brief in the interest of time and the interest of your agenda. Madam Kitarovic already focused on some aspects of the relationship with the EU and the role Azerbaijan is playing, a key role in terms of energy security and your ambition to, let's say, to deepen that cooperation. I would like to briefly zoom on the Brussels diplomatic scene. And I will be short and maybe a little bit too open and frank, but to my impression, you know in international politics better than I do that there is always a difference between reality, having the international law at your side, and then perception. And that in terms of ownership of foreign policy, perception, unfortunately, sometimes plays a prevailing role. And you already mentioned at the beginning of our conversation the very dynamic, active, negative impact of Armenian diaspora. And I think it's fair to say we are amongst friends here that this diaspora is still playing a very important role, exercising pressure on political leadership in different EU member states and trying to transform, to corrupt reality in their favor. So my question is very brief. How do you see what kind of means and what kind of initiatives you think could be taken, and what role could we play as NGIC that you generously support? What role can we play to try to strike a better balance between a very active presence and activity of an Armenian diaspora, putting pressure on heads of state and government and also on people in Brussels, and then the reality and the arguments you have, the good arguments you have? I think that I can be a kind of spokesperson for lots of colleagues that we would like very much to help to restore this balance and to restore to a certain extent the reality, which is that you have international law at your side and that this was a matter of fairness to have the occupied territories back into Azerbaijan. So my question is very brief. Do you have suggestions? Do you have initiatives? Can we connect with people representing Azerbaijan at the European headquarters in Brussels, the European capital? And can we work together? To what extent can we work together to try to influence public opinion and influence political leadership in Europe? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you for your question. You touched upon a very important issue. Actually, this issue creates the biggest problems for us and for Armenia, because the difference between reality and perception, you are absolutely right, is one of the biggest challenges which we faced and still face, especially after the Second Karabakh War, in order to defend our case, in order to deliver our message. So Armenia always and still they have diaspora and they think that diaspora is helping them, but if you look at the outcome of the Second Karabakh War, we see that that was a diaspora mainly one of the most important factors for their humiliating defeat. Because not to give a centimeter of territory back was the ideological substance of Armenian diaspora. We all know very well that they choose, most of the cases, the best cities to live, whether it's in the United States, in California, or in the south of France, or in the south of Russia, and in Latin America. They live in a very comfortable environment. Most of them are well established in business. They create numerous diaspora organizations, and they enjoy their life. And they actually do not care much about what is living standards of those who lived in Karabakh. After we liberated the territories, and in some parts of those territories, there was illegal settlement of Armenians. And when you go to that part where Armenian population lived, I was shocked, because it's like a slums, you know. It's beyond any normal understanding of the living standards of the 21st century. There was a total poverty, unemployment. And these people actually were kept as hostages to satisfy the ambitions or some emotions or some goals of diaspora who live on the French Riviera or in California. Therefore, one of the reasons of why Armenia now in this situation is diaspora. Another observation, we thought, and we were convinced, at least myself, that diaspora is spending a lot of money in the occupied territory, because every year they had these marathons to collect money. They collected maybe more than 100 million a year, and for a small territory, small population, I mean, it's a lot. But we did not see it. The city of Shusha, which Armenians occupied, and they said that it's Armenian city, was in total devastation, total poverty. The regions where they used to live, we didn't see these investments. Either this money was not collected, or this money was channeled to other destinations. So, and now diaspora also is playing a very counterproductive role, because the results of the war is clear. If the war did not stop on the night from 9th to 10th of November, situation of Armenia would have been much more, even more difficult. We stopped when it was right time to stop, and we got what we planned, and now it's time to reconcile. Now it's time to understand for Armenian people who live in Karabakh that only in good neighborhood with Azerbaijanis there is a chance for them to protect their views, or to build a future. So I think first diaspora should understand the reality. They should understand and make some changes in their policy. Their policy failed, and whether they'll be able to do it or not. So I think first it should be an attempt, and maybe also by the Nizami Center, to convey the messages that your policy was wrong, it failed, it created total crisis in Armenia, which is already for more than 6 months. And second, of course, to counterbalance it, we need to have opportunity to deliver our message. And Nizami Center is one of the key structure in delivering the message about reality. So we hope that this will continue. Armenia had diaspora on their side. We had international law and justice on our side. So the development of events showed that we were on the right side of the history.
Mr. President, you have been extremely gracious and extremely patient with us. We have so much interest in this dialogue with you, which has been informative, illuminating, and inspiring, that we still have quite a substantial list of people who would like to speak to you. But we had an agreement with you. We do not wish to abuse your patience. So I leave it up to you.
Yeah. First of all, that was agreement not with me, but some people from my administration. So, and second, I myself enjoy these discussions, which is very productive and useful. Therefore, I'm ready to continue. So please go ahead.
Wonderful. We then have a question from Madam Anna Berchel from Romania, the former Prime Minister between 2016 and 2019. Anna Berchel, please.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam President. Good evening from Romania, Mr. President. It's a really great pleasure and honor to meet with you again, and we very much look forward to seeing you in person as soon as possible. We are very proud that, as you know, Romania and Azerbaijan has a strong strategic partnership, and we take pride that Romania was among the first European Union states, that recognized the independence of Azerbaijan, and further, we were the first EU member state that signed a strategic partnership with Azerbaijan. So in the light of this, what do you think we can do together, not only to strengthen and deepen our strategic partnership, our existing strategic partnership, but also to take it to the next level, including, for example, on issues of common interest, such as transportation, strategic transportation, energy security, and so on and so forth. And may I end by saying again that it's a great pleasure to be a proud member of the forum, and may I so allow me to congratulate the two co-chairs who always been very gracious to all of us, and a special thank you to the Secretary General who always been in touch with us, including during those difficult times of 2020. So with that in mind, again, thank you so much, and very much looking forward to seeing you all as soon as possible.
Thank you, thank you. I also hope to see you soon in Baku and to continue our dialogue. And you're absolutely right that Romania was one of the first countries which recognized us as independent state and was the first to sign an agreement on strategic partnership, which actually opened the door for us to be able to sign the same kind of document with other countries. And I remember our meetings with you, and in your capacity as a Deputy Prime Minister, you played a very important role in bringing two countries together. You remember we discussed many times our joint plans, how to build partnership. We were discussing about high-ranking visitors to come from Romania to you were high-ranking visitor, but even higher than your position. But then probably pandemic interfered, and we now have a kind of a break in this active phase of cooperation. We would like to resume. You know my position. I told you about that, and I think we can find a very fruitful areas of cooperation, as you said, energy security, because today, after completion of the Southern Gas Corridor, Romania is now very close from point of view of distance to our pipeline system. And also on transportation, the new opportunities of post-war development really create unique situation for connectivity. And this will be important for us and for Romania. So we are ready. I hope that when you visit us with Center at the Global Forum, there'll be opportunity to talk in more details about that. But our position always was open and very clear. We want to resume active phase of our cooperation with Romania.
Mr. President, the next question comes from Mr. Hiro Gaburici, Prime Minister of Moldova in 2015. Mr. Gaburici, your turn. The President extended the time he's allotted to us.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. President Aliyev. Excellency, good evening. And I'm glad to participate at this conference, even though it's online, but I miss Baku a lot. It is well known that due to COVID-19, the whole world passed through an immense storm, I would say, and that destabilized the normal world. So what we are doing now, we have through a process of movement from a normal life, like we used to live, to a new normal. And that is not set definitely at this moment. But meanwhile, the humanity is still continuing to face problems that cannot be solved by each country separately, especially such small countries as mine, Moldova. And I talk here about the environmental problems, about the global heating and air pollution. Mr. President, I heard you talking about the fact that in Karabakh region, you plan to use water, solar, and wind. That's great to hear. Your Excellency, how do you think can these problems unite all of us so we would be able to set up some new global balance? And what should be done in order to be ready to face this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's difficult for me to think what could be outcome of our global efforts. So far, the process goes with relative success. But I think important is that every country on its national level deliver to the population the right messages about that and contribute not by words, but by actions to climate change issues, because there have been a lot of words, a lot of sessions, a lot of applauds, congratulations, celebrating of the victory, but in the end, we are where we've been before. As far as we are concerned, Azerbaijan is a country which maybe do not need now to invest in renewables because we have a large deposits of natural gas. And we use for the time being for our energy production, natural gas and water as clean energy. We do not use coal, we do not use fuel oil, therefore the damage to ecology is minimal. But as a responsible country and the government which thinks about the future, we started to attract investors in renewable. And what I said about Karabakh, a green zone, it is not a declaration, it is a plan. And the plan is already in the phase of implementation. The first hydropower station in the liberated territories in the district of Lachin was inaugurated several months ago. 3-4 months after liberation, I already was there, and I was pressing the button, and we started. We have plans to create maybe at least 1,000 of hydropower stations in the Karabakh area. Second, there is a big potential in the big water reservoir on the border between Iran and Azerbaijan. The water storage have already been built by Iranian side and during the times of occupation. And now we jointly think about building a hydropower station. The power will be 240 megawatt. And last year, before the war, we signed 2 investment agreements with the 2 leading world companies in renewable. One is Aqua Power from Saudi Arabia and Masdar from Emirates to build two power plants, one solar and one wind, of total capacity of 440 up to 480 megawatts. 100% investments will be investments from the companies. And now we're in the phase of already implementation of the master plan for Karabakh green energy zone, which we do with one of the famous Japanese companies. They are preparing now, the contract has been signed. We are preparing, they are preparing the master plan so that we implement this project not sporadically, but based on the system, on the resources, and on the need. And it must be in correlation with the timetable of return of the refugees. So potential for solar in the liberated territories, according to estimation of our Minister of Energy, is 5,000 megawatt. And it is more than we consume now in total country. And taking into account that now we are exporter of electric energy, we have about probably close to 1,000 megawatt generation capacity more than we need. And we have line connections with Russia, with Iran, with Georgia, with Turkey, and we're exporting to all destinations. So export of electric energy already brings tens of millions of dollars revenues, but will bring hundreds of millions. And so it is really, will be a reality. And moreover, I would say that what we are planning to do in that territory, which is equal to 4 Luxembourg and 1 Lebanon, will be unique in the world. No one done anything like that. Smart city, smart village, proper composition of the infrastructure. This will be, so we plan, that will be a good model for development. And we invited famous international companies to prepare a master plan. The master plan for Agdam city is almost ready, soon will be approved. For other cities in the phase of implementation. And coming back again to this issue, we thought that having natural resources like gas and oil, we must invest in renewables, and we must attract investors in renewables, so that will be our demonstration of our responsibility.
Mr. President, we have 3 more questions. We will start by one from Mr. Ekmeledin Ihsanoglu, Secretary General of OIC from 2004 to 2014. And after that, we will take 2 questions together. But let us start with Mr. Ihsanoglu and then your answer to his question before we go on. And the microphone is yours, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. President, it's a pleasure and honor to be with Your Excellency once more, even not in person. But let me first express my congratulations for the historical success of Azerbaijan under your leadership in liberating its occupied territories in Karabakh. And also express my hope that peace and stability will be re-established in this part of the world because of your active foreign policy as a strategic and important pivot in this region and beyond. For the future of the South Caucasus regional development, what are the prospects for this cooperation, and how Your Excellency see the prospect of collaboration and cooperation? Would it be through the existing organizations like Commonwealth of Independent States, Organization of Black Sea Economic Cooperation, or through, for instance, Stability Pact proposed years back, or through new initiatives? By ending my question, I also would like to place on record my appreciation for the great work done by Nizami Gencevi Center and our distinguished co-chairs and the wonderful dynamic secretariat and its staff. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Thank you for your congratulations. You always were actively defending Azerbaijan's right cause for its efforts to put an end to occupation, and we highly value your efforts, and I see the state order on your jacket, and that's a reflection of the feeling of Azerbaijani people to you and what you've done for our partnership and for our cooperation. And with respect to development in the Southern Caucasus, again, everything will depend on the political will and agenda of Armenia. Because today, between Georgia and Azerbaijan and Southern Caucasus, there is a very fruitful format of cooperation since all years of independence, maybe with some exceptions in the very early years. The cooperation was very stable, predictable, and friendly. And today, as already we discussed, we implement jointly important projects for our peoples and our countries. Will Armenia be ready to join this format of cooperation or not? I don't know. If we assume that yes, they will, then of course it is possible and we will not reject, because I think that there's a big potential for regional cooperation in the Southern Caucasus, in the areas related to energy, for instance. We know that potentially Azerbaijan can be a supplier of energy resources to Armenia. This is possible. And this was in the times of the Soviet Union. By the way, Azerbaijan was supplying energy resources to Armenia. Definitely, after Zangezur corridor is built and completed, Armenia will have a lot of opportunities to develop business. Because today, due to the small size of the internal market and very complicated logistical infrastructure, because if the road between Georgia and Russia is blocked by snow, it's done. They're just landlocked. They don't have railroad connection with anyone. They don't have railroad connection with international markets. And when it is not predictable, when investors do not know what to expect, no one will invest. And that's why no one is investing. This will open opportunities for them, but they need to make this choice. They need to put an end to their territorial claims, and not only to Azerbaijan, but also to Turkey. I think that many members of Nizami Center do not know that in Armenian constitution, they have a territorial claims to Turkey. And I, on several occasions, spoke about that. So it is ridiculous. The country of small size, of small population, has territorial claims to such a great country and second army in NATO after United States to Turkey. This is ridiculous. It is in their hands. They need to put an end to these territorial claims, and then maybe they will have a chance to open communications. Because if they do not normalize relations with Azerbaijan and Turkey, their situation will be even worse than it was before war. Because before war, because Second War, they at least had some fake ideology of their unbeatable army, of their brave soldiers, of their victories, but that was fake. We demonstrated in 44 days in this very difficult terrain, in the area where there have been 5 or 6 lines of defense, we defeated the army completely and destroyed it. So they need to be realistically minded and normalize relations with us, with Turkey, stop putting cultural claims to Georgian churches. You probably don't know, but they officially claim that most of the churches in Georgia are Armenian churches. They have claims to everyone. And during this Second Karabakh War, they were appealing to everyone, to France, to United States, to Russia, to others. Now you probably heard that there was a kind of a incident on the border. So do you know what they've done? Armenian Prime Minister, he calls Russian president, he calls French president, he calls other heads of state. Armenia officially sends a letter to Common Defense Treaty Organization to be involved in the conflict, trying to internationalize this small border episode. At the same time, they sent a letter to NATO, and it was published. So this is absolutely counterproductive, and it shows that they have claims to everyone. They think that the whole world should only think how to help them. But if they consider themselves as independent state, they should take care of themselves. So we are ready. As far as I know, Turkish side is ready. But again, coming back to what Prime Minister Leterme was raising, how Nizami Center can be helpful, I think can be very helpful. To deliver this message through prominent politicians, members of center, those people whose opinion is valued, to deliver this message, to persuade them that they are on the wrong side of the history, and today is probably the last chance for them to achieve their dream of independence, really independent country.
Mr. President, we have two last questions which we'll take together. The first comes from Mr. Abdulaziz Al-Tawajiri, an old friend of Nizami Ganjavi International Center, and of course a friend of Azerbaijan, the former Director General of ISESCO. Mr. Al-Tawajiri, you have a chance to pose your question. Please unmute your microphone. Unmute. So far, we do not hear you.
Oh.
If you unmute your microphone, please. Would you keep trying? And meanwhile, we will ask the last questioner to state his question, and that is our friend Hikmet Çetin, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey between 91 and 94. Mr. Çetin, maybe you can connect first, and then we'll go back to Mr. Al-Tawajiri. How is that? Mr. Çetin, are you online? Aha, we have, you see, speakers who are desirous to pose questions, but they are struggling against the stream of resistance from the electronic media. Mr. Al-Tawajiri?
Do you hear me?
Are you able to? Are you on? Please, go ahead.
Yes, I think I am on.
Yes, you are. Do go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, Madam President, and it is a great honor for me to be part of this web discussion with His Excellency President Ilham Aliyev, to whom I renew my heartily congratulations, and to the people of Azerbaijan for the victory in the war and restoring the occupied territories from Armenia. Mr. President, you have been always a man of peace, of dialogue, of cooperation, and they missed the opportunity many times, but this time you took it in your hands. And if the international community couldn't stop the aggression and the occupation, the Azeri people did it. So now the purpose is to rebuild and to bring peace and prosperity to the liberated territories. My question, Mr. President, Armenia has shown always its stubbornness, and they have heeded all the calls that you and the wise people all over the world to come to terms and end this occupation. But now, after the liberation, I don't think they will come to their senses and stop the animosity towards Azerbaijan. Do you envisage, Your Excellency, that sometime they will realize that they are wasting the time and that they should come to participate in bringing peace and security and prosperity to the region? Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, all the members of the Caucasus can really cooperate and create a very strong bloc in the region that advocates peace, cooperation, and prosperity for all. Secondly, I would like to thank Your Excellency for all the support that I have seen and received during my term as Director General of ISESCO, from you personally, from the government of Azerbaijan, and from the people of Azerbaijan. And I'm very proud to be part of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, which I really commend its efforts, its diligence, its successful work, all walks of issues and subjects. And this is due to your patronage, your support, and your overseeing the work of the center. So yes, Nizami Ganjavi Center can participate in creating the atmosphere for peace and security in the region and convincing those who would like to engage in such a process. And I wish Azerbaijan and Your Excellency all success.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Tawajiri. Is Hikmet Cetin online? Hikmet, do we have you? Do you have access to your microphone? Can you unmute your microphone? We look forward to that very last question from the former Minister of Affairs of Turkey. Hikmet, we are calling for you.
May I say a few words to President Aliyev? No, it's Petre Roman speaking. May I say a few words to President Aliyev?
All right. Go ahead.
Do you allow me?
Of course.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, President Aliyev, I must tell you that I'm very impressed by your attitude, by your balance. You are a victorious leader right now. The victorious leader, just victorious leader of leader of your country. And although you are this victorious leader, you feel sorry about the Armenian people. And that is really a bridge. That could be a bridge towards some kind of reconciliation. We know that a war is ended when reconciliation is starting. So it's a very simple question. Do you think that the Ganjavi International Center, which reunites so many leaders of the world, and which is beyond any doubt that it is a reasonable, a sensible, and logical structure. Do you think, Mr. President, that we could invite some Armenian politicians to a dialogue with us? I mean, the Nizami Ganjavi International Center leaders. This is also in the sense of what asked before Yves Le Terme. I think that could be just a first step towards some kind of a dialogue, inviting some Armenian politicians to talk to us. That's my question. And again, congratulations.
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. First question of Mr. Tuvejri. First of all, I'd like to express gratitude to Mr. Tuvejri. As a Secretary General of ISESCO, he always supported Azerbaijan in its cause of liberation of the territories. We all remember Mr. Tuvejri's bright speeches at numerous fora in Baku, fora related to multiculturalism, and he was a very frequent guest to Azerbaijan because we had a number of international events before the pandemic. And with respect to the question which he puts that Armenia, will they realize that they're wasting time? It's difficult to answer because for so many years, the leaders of Armenia were poisoning the brains of their citizens by exactly this creation of this mythology about themselves, about their history. And some of them, or maybe most of them, started to believe in this mythology. You know, the tragedy of today's Armenian society is, after we started to closely look at what is really happening there, that many of them really believed that the Karabakh belongs to them. And none of them asked themselves that why then this area is called Karabakh, which means nothing in Armenia. If it is an ancient Armenian land, why then in Soviet times the main city of Karabakh, then Nagorno-Karabakh, was named Stepanakert after the name of the Bolshevik terrorist Stepan Shahumyan? If there was it was an ancient Armenian city, why they did not rename it? And don't they know the history? It's even enough to look at Wikipedia now to see that Shusha was established by Azerbaijani Khan Panakhali in 1752. And before occupation, always it was Azerbaijanis who lived there. After occupation, they changed the names of our cities. They changed the name of Shusha, made it Shushi. Again, Shushi doesn't mean anything in Armenia, but Shusha means glass. It's glass, it's because the air is as clean as glass. They changed the name of Agdam, they called it Akna. They changed the name of Fizuli, called it Varandi or something like that. They changed everything. And they started to believe that it really belongs to them. This is a tragedy of Armenian society. In order for them to understand that they were wasting time, they need to change ideological dogma. They need to have a treatment, really. I don't want to be rude, but I'm not going to insult anyone, but really to treat their psychology and to put an end to this mythological dogma which they created and they started to believe. In this case, after some time, I think, they will understand it. And hopefully, Nizami Center, by its efforts, by its personalities, can help them. Coming to question of Mr. Roman, Prime Minister of Romania. As I said, the conflict is over. Nagorno-Karabakh conflict does not exist. In Azerbaijan, the entity called Nagorno-Karabakh do not exist. And we don't now see any problems why we cannot start cooperating. We actually already cooperate. Our deputy prime ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan are working on the concrete issues of Zangezur corridor. Therefore, in principle, I think it is possible that Armenian politicians can be part of the events and discussions in Nizami Center. But one thing also is clear, that Nizami Center, this unique international institution, is united by people who share the same values. And the number of great personalities in Nizami Center already puts a criteria of quality of people, of their vision. All of you are united by the noble ideas of cooperation, security, good neighborhood, and other noble ideas. Therefore, if we are talking about some Armenian politicians who can join the center, I don't mind, but that person should meet this criteria in order not to transfer Nizami Center into the area of confrontation, claims, and ambitions. If Mr. Roman and our friends can find such a politician in Armenia, it will be interesting to see who he or she is, but probably there is, and then I think it will be absolutely okay with me.
Just to start a dialogue, Not
but
to,
dialogue.
Thank you, Petr. We have had, Mr. President, I think, a remarkable dialogue. Indeed, I would say that it was a historical dialogue in terms of the breadth geographically of the countries represented here, in terms of the height, if I may say so, in the offices that they have held in the more or less recent past, but most of all in the depth and breadth of your answers, which have been extremely impressive in their clarity, in their sincerity, and in the quantity of information they have provided us with, in case there are details that it would be useful for us to know. We have here an impressive number of participants, in addition to an impressive number of speakers that we have heard. And it has taken a serious job of preparation to get such a historical event together. And may I, in conclusion, even as we express our deepest gratitude to you, Mr. President, to your patience, to your endurance, but especially to your goodwill, and to your unfailing support of the idea that NGIC represents, and to the realization and the manner in which we have been trying and working to realize it in real life. It was a dream of yours at the beginning, and we have done our best in joining you in this dream of creating a locus, a place for dialogue. And it seems to me that today's event by itself demonstrates to what extent we have managed to achieve precisely that goal, which was a dream of yours and of us who joined this center. We are deeply grateful to Ravshan Muradov, the Secretary General, who was born on his shoulders the great weight of organizing an event of this importance, particularly because of the presence of you, Mr. President. The rest of us here, my colleagues, will not, I hope, get offended. We are has-beens. We have finished our office, but you are a president in office, and that means in terms of protocol, in terms of security, different precautions that need to be taken, extra work. Thank you for your staff and your chancery for allowing this to happen. Thank you for our secretariat, these young people, small in number, but extremely active and extremely bright and eager and hardworking. And Mr. President, may I conclude by saying we wish you good health, unfailing energy. Our greetings to Madam Aliyeva, the Vice President of Azerbaijan. We are all very fond of her, who have had interactions with her within the framework of the NGIC or in our functions in our respective countries. This has been a remarkable event. It has been recorded. And in the quantity of information they have provided us with, in case there are details that it would be useful for us to know. We have here an impressive number of participants, in addition to an impressive number of speakers that we have heard. And it has taken a serious job of preparation to get such a historical event together. And may I, in conclusion, even as we express our deepest gratitude to you, Mr. President, to your patience, to your endurance, but especially to your goodwill, and to your unfailing support of the idea that NGIC represents, and to the realization and the manner in which we have been trying and working to realize it in real life. It was a dream of yours at the beginning, and we have done our best in joining you in this dream of creating a place for dialogue. And it seems to me that today's event by itself demonstrates to what extent we have managed to achieve precisely that goal, which was a dream of yours and of us who joined this center. We are deeply grateful to Roshan Muradov, the Secretary General, who was born on his shoulders the great weight of organizing an event of this importance, particularly because of the presence of you, Mr. President. The rest of us here, my colleagues, will not, I hope, get offended. We are has-beens. We have finished our office, but you are a president in office, and that means in terms of protocol, in terms of security, different precautions that need to be taken, extra work. Thank you for your staff and your chancery for allowing this to happen. Thank you for our secretariat, these young people, small in number, but extremely active and extremely bright and eager and hardworking. And Mr. President, may I conclude by saying we wish you good health, unfailing energy. Our greetings to Madam Aliyeva, the Vice President of Azerbaijan. We are all very fond of her, who have had interactions with her within the framework of the NGIC or in our functions in our respective countries. This has been a remarkable event. It has been recorded, and I believe it will go down in history. Thank you so much, and thank you to all you participants and for all your wonderful questions. And thank you once again to the President for his wonderful answers.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you, Madam President, for your comments and for your kind words about me, about what we are doing. And our partnership and our friendship already was tested so many times throughout all these years. And once again, I'd like to express gratitude to you, to Mr. Sarıgeldian, for this initiative for me to be able to deliver this message. We talked a lot on many issues, and I said one of the important factors of NGIC is that through this important international institution, the voice of Azerbaijan is now heard in the world. That was what we were deprived from in the early years of independence due to objective reasons. And I'm very grateful for this initiative, for this opportunity for me to address these issues. As always, we've been very sincere with each other, with a great level of mutual respect and And I'd like to express gratitude to all the participants. And first of all, of course, to the co-chairs, and saying that I'm waiting for you. I miss you. We need to get together this year.
I'll be there. I will be there, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. All the best to you. Good luck, and see you in Baku.
See you in Baku.
Bye.
See you in Baku. Thank you.